Have you ever picked up a fossil and just wondered? I mean, really wondered about the insane journey it took to get into your hands. We're talking about a story that spans millions of years, a tale of survival against just, well, impossible odds. So today, let's follow that journey and find out how life actually turns to stone.
It really does feel kind of like magic, doesn't it? An animal lives its life, it dies, and then millions of years later, bam, its bones are preserved as a fossil. But this is not just a simple burial. No, it's a complicated, often violent, and incredibly rare chain of events. So, how does it really actually work?
You know, this quote right here really gets to the heart of it. The fossil record, it's got huge gaps. Almost every single organism that has ever lived on this planet vanished without a trace. Becoming a fossil is not the default setting. It's like winning a geological lottery, and almost all the tickets get lost along the way.
Okay, so if becoming a fossil is like winning the lottery, what are the winning numbers? Well, it turns out, to even have a shot at being preserved, an organism needs 2 golden tickets. 2 absolutely essential conditions that get the whole process started.
And here they are. It's really this simple and totally non-negotiable. First, you've got to have hard parts. You know, things like bones, teeth, shells, or even wood. Soft stuff like skin and muscle, it almost always decays way too quickly. And second, you have to get buried. And I mean fast. This protects the remains from, well, everything.
Let's break that down a little. The hard parts, they give a durable framework that can survive that initial onslaught of decay. And getting buried quickly in sediment, think sand, mud, or even volcanic ash, it's like locking the remains in a protective vault. It seals them off from oxygen, from hungry scavengers, from the elements. This combo, hard shells and quick burial, is exactly why the fossil record is so jam-packed with marine animals.
All right, so our organism has its golden tickets. It died, it had hard parts, and it got buried in a hurry. Now the real transformation starts. And scientists have a pretty cool name for this whole process, from the moment of death all the way to discovery. It's called taphonomy.
Taphonomy is basically the forensic science of the ancient world. It's how we piece together the whole story of what happened to an organism after it died. And this journey can be broken down into 3 very distinct, and often pretty brutal, stages.
This diagram here gives us a fantastic visual roadmap of that perilous journey. You can see all the things that can go wrong for, say, a shelled animal. They can get broken up, filled with muck, or just dissolve away into nothing. So we're going to follow this path through the 3 stages of taphonomy. So stage 1 is necrolysis. This is the immediate chaotic aftermath of death. It's all about the biochemical breakdown, where all the soft parts just rot away. For our little shelled animal, this is when its muscles and organs disappear, leaving just that empty shell behind. It is a race against total obliteration from the very start.
Next up is biostratinommy, and you can think of this as the physical beatdown. After the soft tissues are gone, those hard parts are completely at the mercy of the environment. They can be trampled by other animals, smashed by waves, carried for miles by currents, or even bored into by other organisms. This stage is all about whether the remains can just hold on long enough to get buried for good.
And finally, if our remains have somehow survived all of that, they enter diagenesis. This is the great transformation, like a slow-motion geological pressure cooker. Over millions of years, as all the sediment around them gets squeezed and cemented into solid rock, the remains themselves are chemically changed, turning them into the stone fossils that we all recognize.
So the journey is complete. Our organism has actually become a fossil. But what form does it take? Because that crazy journey through taphonomy can have a few different outcomes, leaving behind different kinds of echoes in the rock.
When it comes down to it, we generally find 4 main types of fossils. Sometimes we get super lucky and find the actual original material. Much more often, we find petrified remains. Other times, all that's left is just an impression, a mold or a cast. And then sometimes we don't find the creature at all, but the evidence it left behind.
Okay, so preserving the original material is like the holy grail for paleontologists. This is the actual stuff of the animal, like a woolly mammoth frozen in ice or a bug perfectly trapped in amber. It's incredibly rare. What's way more common is petrification. This is where groundwater seeps into the remains and replaces the organic material, literally molecule by molecule, with minerals. It turns it to stone. This is how we get petrified wood and most of the dinosaur bones you see in museums.
Now what about molds and casts? Okay, imagine you press your hand into wet cement. The empty impression you leave behind, that's the mold. Now, if someone came along later and filled that handprint with plaster, the plaster hand they pop out, That's the cast. The exact same thing happens in rock. An organism gets buried, its body dissolves, leaving an empty space, the mold. And if that space later fills up with minerals, it creates a perfect replica, the cast. You can see this concept perfectly right here with our shelled animal. After that original shell dissolves, it can leave behind two different impressions, an external mold of the shell's outside surface, and if the shell got filled with mud first, an internal mold of its inside surface. Pretty cool, right?
This last category, honestly, this one might be my favorite. Because sometimes the rock doesn't save what the animal was, but what it did. These are called trace fossils, and they give us this remarkable, direct window into the behavior of ancient life.
These are like the ghosts in the machine of the fossil record. We're talking about things like dinosaur footprints, the burrows of ancient worms, the impression a leaf made when it fell in the mud, or even coprolites. Yep, that's fossilized poop, which can tell us exactly what these animals were eating. They're literally frozen moments of ancient behavior.
So, we've seen just how brutally difficult it is for even a single fossil to form. But why does all this matter so much? Because every single one of these unlikely survivors is a key that helps us unlock the grand story of our planet's history. This right here is the fundamental, game-changing idea, first really pieced together by a guy named William Smith back in the early 1800s. It's called the principle of faunal succession. And all it says is that life is changed over time in a consistent, predictable order. Certain fossils only show up in certain layers of rock, and they always appear in the same sequence.
Think of it this way. Fossils act like chapter markers in the giant book of Earth's history. Just look at how specific life forms appear in specific layers here. You got shelled animals way down in the oldest Cambrian rocks, while humans, that's us, we only show up at the very, very top. Each type of fossil has its own unique time range.
And this is where the real power of this principle lies. If you find a certain type of trilobite in a rock layer in, say, Wales, and then you find that exact same type of trilobite in a rock layer in North America, you know, with certainty, that those two rock layers formed at the exact same time. Fossils are our global time machine.
So, the most important thing to remember is this. The fossil record might be incomplete, sure, but it is not random. It's like a library with most of its books missing, but the books that are left are still in perfect order on the shelves. Each fossil is a precious, unlikely survivor that tells us a small piece of the incredible story of life.
They really are messages from lost worlds, just waiting for us to read them. And it kind of makes you wonder, if you could find any fossil, maybe a creature no one has ever seen before, or a trace fossil that reveals some long-forgotten behavior, what story from our planet's deep, deep past would you want to uncover the most?